The A6 estate, or Avant in Audi speak, has been a mainstay of the firm's range for decades now, and providing comfortable and premium feeling transportation with a really big focus on practicality. These days, well, it could be argued that Audi is putting more emphasis on its range of SUVs and crossovers than it is on its traditional estate cars. But why should you be choosing this estate car over a more high-riding SUV or crossover? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. But before we dive in and see what the A6 is like, please remember to subscribe to the Motor.co.uk YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new review. The A6 design has definitely evolved over time, and this latest version actually looks pretty similar to previous generations. You've got the traditional large Audi front grille, slim lights, and around the back it's all tied together in a rather premium fashion. I also quite like this red shade, which looks really bright and very good on a gloomy day like today. This generation of A6 has actually been on sale for a little while now, but its interior still feels really premium and really smartly finished. You've got this dual screen setup too, which is an infotainment system up top, and then your heating and ventilation functions down below. Both work really nicely and both have kind of like a slightly haptic feedback, so you can actually feel when you are pressing a certain type of function. Elsewhere, we've got some decent cup holders here. Got a nice bit of storage under here, and that's your charging ports too. And then you've got some nice deep door bins down the side. Feels like a really nicely finished cabin, and definitely one that you'd be happy spending many hours in. Space is what you want from an estate car like the A6, and that's just what you get in the rear of the cabin here. There's loads of legroom and plenty of headroom too, despite this car having sunroofs, both front and back. There's some nice deep nets here for storing your loose items, some nice bins down the side. You've got controls for your heating and ventilation back here too. And you've also got a nice little armrest in the middle, which features integrated cup holders, so it's quite smart. Against a car like the 5 Series Touring, one of the A6's main rivals, I'd say this feels slightly more spacious, but it is quite dark back here because of the black headlining, so you really are going to want a brighter coloured upholstery to help lift the overall feel of the cabin. You want the best possible boot space from an estate car, and this hybrid version of the A6 does bring it with it a slight caveat in terms of overall practicality. So in the boot here, you've got 405 litres of storage space that, because of the batteries and the electric motor, that's quite a lot less than the 565 litres that you'll get in the regular diesel or petrol versions. Also, quite a lot of room is taken up by the charging cables, so you're left with, well, not quite as much room as you might expect from a car of this size. It does mean, however, that if you are wanting the best possible practicality, then it's much better to go for the diesel or petrol versions rather than this plug-in hybrid. This A6 Avant is a plug-in hybrid version, which means it's got a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine, and that's linked up to an electric motor and batteries. Now, Audi says that you should get over 200 mpg, but as with all plug-in hybrids, that's going to be taken with a little pinch of salt, because that relies on you having it fully charged at all times. With a range of just over 45 miles from a full battery, the A6 TFSI-E actually has a really good electric range. So if you're doing shorter journeys or trips to school with the kids perhaps, you'll be able to do a lot of those just on electric power alone. And actually, the ability to drive on electric power gives the A6 a nice calmness, a nice quietness to it when you're traveling at slower speeds. If you do require more performance, the engine will eventually kick in, and when it does, the transition is pretty good too. The steering is relatively vague in this car. It doesn't feel awfully connected, but that's something that we get with modern cars and electrically assisted steering. However, it's quite refreshing just to be driving a nice estate car again. The push for crossovers and SUVs is so great that more and more you seem to be noticing that there's not quite so much focus put on traditional estate cars and saloons, but actually they're always my go-to car for when you want something that's practical, spacious, comfortable, because they do all of that, but they're lower to the ground, which makes them just slightly better to drive and more engaging. Quieter too. You don't get that same feeling of superiority that you get from an SUV. You're not looking over the tops of other cars. But I just like being lower down to the road, and I think it makes you feel a little bit more in control of all your directions. Overall visibility is really good too. Nice wide windscreen, nice wide rear screen, and the pillars aren't too thick, so over the shoulder checks all absolutely fine. I still just wonder whether even though in this day and age when diesel is, well, it's not an awfully popular word, is it? Whether diesel is still the best choice for this car. I think it is, because cars like this are often required to be doing big, long journeys, fully loaded up with gear, and a diesel engine is just always naturally a better fit for that, both in terms of efficiency and refinement too. Having said that, because these cars, the TFSI-E, can bring CO2 emissions of around about 30 grams per kilometre, depending on what size wheel you go for, they're going to be really cheap in terms of business tax, and for many people that'll be a really big draw. So I can understand why the plug-in hybrid would be the one to go for. It does bring that penalty in terms of overall practicality, which is a shame because after all that's what you're picking an estate car for. The ride quality is really good in this car too. Sometimes you find that with plug-in hybrids, the additional weight of batteries and motors unsettles the whole experience, and you can find it feeling a bit bobbly, particularly over bad tarmac, which we find a lot of in the UK. But this car is actually really riding very pleasantly, and I've driven it over quite a few nasty sections of road, and it's dealt with them just fine despite being on relatively large alloy wheels. There's just something inherently right feeling about a nice big estate car, to me anyway. It feels comfortable, calm, refined, and then you know that you've got loads of space too. The Audi is definitely the more comfort orientated of the large estate cars that you might be looking at if you're looking at this one. The 5 Series Touring from BMW is definitely a sportier focus car, particularly if you get it in M Sport, which is for me a little bit too much on the firm side. The Mercedes E-Class meanwhile dials the comfort levels up a tiny bit more, I'd say, and it's got a really big boot. You could also throw the Volvo V90 into the mix too, which I really like because it has a really nice blend of comfort and of course practicality, and the cabin in that is really strong too. Audi was actually relatively late to the party with a hybrid version of the A6. BMW had already done one, Volvo was well on the way with its V90 T8, but actually it feels like a really well-rounded powertrain. When it comes to efficiency terms, I said that Audi claims over 200 mpg, but the long-term memory of this, so over 500 odd miles of this car's been travelling, it's been averaging 38 mpg. So even though you're getting those lower CO2 emissions, the actual day-to-day economy, well, it's not as good as a diesel at all. The Audi A6 Avant continues to be a great option for drivers who want practicality and comfort in one smart-looking and really nicely finished package. It's quite funny that now it seems to be the alternative to an SUV or a crossover. Actually, if you are wanting a car that can pack everything and travel big distances in great comfort, the A6 Avant is a great choice. The only drawback comes with this plug-in hybrid model, as it really does dial back the practicality in favour of efficiency. So if you are wanting a better run around town, then this hybrid will be better. But if you're after a load lugger that'll do big journeys, then we still continue to feel that the diesel and petrol models might be a better option. The good news is that this generation of A6 Avant has been on sale for a little while now, so if you're not planning on buying new, then there are thousands of used examples all on motors.co.uk today. And since you're here, please give us a like if you've enjoyed this video and let us know in the comments below what you think of this car. And remember to subscribe to the motors.co.uk YouTube channel and hit that bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new video.